Hello, my name is Lloyd Chapman, and I'm the president and founder of the American Small Business League. And today is December 9th, and it was announced a couple of days ago that President-elect Trump had nominated Linda McMahon to be the new SBA administrator. And I'm sure she's a very nice person and obviously a very smart person. But I have a concern that Mr. Trump may try to close the Small Business Administration by combining with the Department of Commerce. So the reason I say that is Ronald Reagan tried to do that twice. And then during the Clinton administration, Republican members of Congress tried to close the SBA. President Bush tried to close the SBA. I have a friend that was in the room when President Bush told Hector Barreto, when he appointed Hector to head the SBA, that he wanted the agency closed by the end of his first term. And what Bush did was cut the SBA budget and staffing in half. And then, I guess it was, I want to say 2011, North Carolina Senator Richard Burr proposed legislation to close the SBA by combining with the Department of Commerce. And so I'm fairly certain that President-elect Trump is going to try and do that. And if he doesn't try to close the SBA by combining with the Department of Commerce, I say that he will divert federal small business contracts to Fortune 500 firms. That's actually gone on now for 15 years. So I think it happened under every president since Reagan. And I've been suing the government for 25 years to try to stop that. In fact, I've got two cases in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals right now to try to stop that. One's against the Pentagon, and I filed an injunction against the Small Business Administration to stop them from reporting awards to Fortune 500 firms as small business awards, and from eliminating about two-thirds or excluding about two-thirds of all federal acquisitions from their calculations on the percentage of contracts that went to small businesses. So they claim that in fiscal year 2016, small businesses got, in 2015, they claimed small businesses got, I think, 25%. They probably got maybe 3%, something like that, when you look at the total acquisition budget. So that's my prediction. December 9th, 2016, I predict that most likely in the first 100 days of his administration, President-elect Trump will try to close the Small Business Administration as Ronald Reagan did and as Senator Richard Burr proposed by combining with the Department of Commerce. And I want everyone to be clear that combining the SBA with the Department of Commerce is closing it. So when Ronald Reagan was very clear that he wanted to close the SBA. Close the SBA and all federal programs for small businesses, the way he wanted to close it was to combine with the Department of Commerce. So the Department of Commerce is the agency that represents the biggest companies in America. The SBA is the agency that represents the smallest businesses. And to combine the SBA with the Commerce Department would be closing it. Fortune 500 firms have lobbied for 30 years to close the SBA, and I'll tell you why. The Small Business Act mandates that 23% of all government contracts go to small businesses. Well, the big Fortune 500 firms, particularly in the defense and aerospace industry, want every penny the government spends in their pocket. They want 100% of all government contracts. Well, they can't achieve that as long as the Small Business Act is in place and the SBA is there. So that's the reason why they want to close the SBA. Greed. And at this point in time, I guess there's been, 30, 40 failed investigations and investigative reports in the media that found that Fortune 500 firms are the real recipients of most federal small business contracts. Starting in 2005, the SBA Inspector General released Report 515 that said this: one of the largest challenges facing the Small Business Administration and the entire federal government today is that large businesses are receiving federal small business procurement awards and agencies are receiving credit for these awards. As early as 2002, the Government Accountability Office found that over 5,300 large businesses were getting federal small business contracts. During President Obama's first campaign, in February 2008, he released a statement: it's time to end the diversion of federal small business contracts to corporate giants. So there's no question that it's happening. And again, the Pentagon and its prime contractors want to close the SBA to cover up the fraud and corruption that has gone on. And we think that'd be a big mistake. The SBA released a report during the Bush administration that said that over 90% of all U.S. firms have less than 20 employees, and they're responsible for over 97% of the net new jobs. The U.S. Census Bureau had very similar numbers. I remember, I think they said 98% of all U.S. firms have less than 100 employees and generate over 90% of the net new jobs. So no matter where you look in the government, you're going to see data that shows the small business create the overwhelming majority of net new jobs. President Trump promised to be the greatest jobs president God ever created. And since all available data show the small businesses create over 9% of the net new jobs, you can't create jobs without small businesses. So the largest program, I guess, in history to create jobs and boost the middle-class economy is the Small Business Act that mandates that 23% of all government contracts go to small businesses. I think that's the most efficient, effective economic stimulus program in history. What better way to invest our tax dollars than to give 23% to the 28 million small businesses that are responsible for 50% of the gross domestic product, over 50% of the private sector workforce, over 90% of all U.S. exporters, and over 90% of the net new jobs. So to try to close the SBA and end that program would be economic suicide, and I hope that it doesn't happen. But there has been attempts under every Republican administration, I think, for 30 years to close the SBA. So that's my prediction. We'll see what happens. I'm Lloyd Chapman, the American Small Business League. Thank you.